On today's show, we head to Winton Motor Raceway in northeastern Victoria for the opening round of the 2020 Australian Motor Racing Series, featuring the TA2 muscle cars, the Thunder Sports Cup and the MotorsportsTV Miniature Race Cars. Then we head across to France and to the Isla 2000 ski resort for round 3 of the 2019-20 Andros Trophy, France's premier ice racing series. And later in the show, we head to Willowbank Raceway on the outskirts of Brisbane for the latest instalment of the Aeroflow Outlaw Nitro Funny Cars. This is Speedweek.
Hello and thanks for joining us here at Winton Motor Raceway for round 1 of the Australian Motor Racing Series. I'm Luke Heismans. Joining me in the commentary box is Lachlan Mansell. Lachlan, we're in for a great year ahead.
Really excited about the 2020 AMRS. Some very cool categories on the program. In today's show, we're going to be checking out highlights from the opening round of the series from the Promaxx Performance Exhaust TA2 Muscle Car Series, the Thunder Sports Cup and the MotorsportsTV Miniature Race Cars.
So on that note, Lockie, let's take a look at the calendar ahead. We are, of course, at Winton Motor Raceway for round 1. Round 2 will head to Morgan Park, then South Australia for round 3 at Tailem Bend. We'll be back at Winton Motor Raceway for round 4. Queensland Raceway will host round 5. Round 6 will see us head to Sydney Motorsport Park, and for our final round, we'll go to Wakefield Park. To stay up to date with the calendar and, of course, all the latest AMRS news, head to amrseries.com.au. It's already been a big weekend for the Promaxx Performance Exhaust's TA2 Muscle Car Series. Lockie, talk us through the action so far.
Well, qualifying was a tight contest between the impressive rookie John McLaughlin and the veteran and 2017 TA2 champion Russell Wright. They swapped positions at the top of the timesheets on a number of occasions throughout the qualifying session, but in the end it was Russell Wright who came out of the pits and had a second run, who ended up taking pole position by a fairly minuscule margin aboard his number 55 Ford Mustang, with a very committed lap late in the session to move up to the top of the timesheets. He snatched the PWR Performance Products Pole Position Award, and he caught up with our own Kylie King at the end of the session.
Kind of a bit lucky actually, because I nearly didn't go back out for a second run, and that worked. But it's going to be tight because it's 6 cars within a second, so it's going to be a tough race.
As the cars take to the track and we prepare for race 3, it's great to have Promaxx Performance Exhausts now on board as our new TA2 Muscle Car Series sponsor. And Kylie King caught up with Anthony Bright from Promaxx earlier on in the weekend.
Catching up with Anthony Bright in pit lane. Now, I just had a little chat with Craig Denyer because Promaxx Performance Exhaust, are the naming rights sponsors for the TA2 series. A great alignment, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited to be part of the Promaxx TA2 race series. There's some great associations. It's an exciting category. It's a loud category. It's a really competitive category. The vehicles themselves, being the Mustangs, the Camaros and the Challengers, it's the new muscle car for the Australian market. The alignment with our exhaust programs that run, which is very much what we focus on those vehicles. There's just a really good synergy there, so we're really excited to be part of that.
Now, I see the old Steve Petty Motorsports branding on the shirt there, a bit of obviously an association and a link. What can you tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. Steve Petty from the US, we've been friends for 7 or 8 years now. He's been trying to push the Australian market and have some sort of association. The door opened middle of last year for that to transpire, so we thought we'd give it a go. The advantage, as the market's changing from a car variation here in Australia, we're seeing a lot more of the American-based vehicles coming, such as the Mustang and the Camaro. So we have access via our association with Steve to those vehicles before they hit the Australian market, so that we can develop our products accordingly and hopefully be at the forefront of the market when they become available. And the later part of our association, we're now in the process of manufacturing and exporting these exhausts back to Steve Petty in the US for the US market.
It was an event-filled race 2 that will set the grid for our upcoming race 3. Of course, the big news was the coming together of number 17, John McLaughlin, and our pole sitter, number 55, Russell Wright, after Jason Hassett blew an engine and causing both John McLaughlin and Russell Wright to come together. John McLaughlin was able to escape with minimal damage and go on to win the race, but unfortunately that spelled the end for Russell Wright with a DNF. So let's take a look at the grid for race 3. Of course, John McLaughlin will be starting in first, Murray Kent in second, Michael Coolidge in third, in fourth will be Michael Coulter, and rounding out the top 5 will be Graham Cheney.
Some other good battles to keep an eye on. The battle for rookie honours. John McLaughlin certainly been very impressive in that regard so far. And also Russell Wright charging his way through from the rear of the field.
It's great to have these onboard shots in various cars, but we are racing now for race 3 of the TA2 Muscle Car Series. And of course, into turn 1, Murray Kent leads, elbows out over John McLaughlin.
Excellent start, excellent reaction from the outside of the front row from Murray Kent. Few cars running door to door as they exit turn number 2. The Winton circuit has been recently re-profiled in a couple of corners, particularly these 2 turns here. Turns 3 and 4, the drivers are able to carry a lot more entry speed. Michael Coolidge lost 3rd position off the start to Michael Coulter. He slots back to 4th position on this opening lap.
So a huge thank you to Promaxx Performance Exhausts for these fantastic onboard shots as we ride with Michael Coolidge trying to find a way past Michael Coulter, but it is Murray Kent who leads over John McLaughlin in that number 17 Ford Mustang.
It's been an impressive debut weekend so far for John McLaughlin. Got the win in race 2 after a wheel-to-wheel battle all race long against Russell Wright in both races 1 and 2, but he finds himself in 2nd position once again. John McLaughlin putting the pressure on Murray Kent, and some dramas here for Mark Crutcher, the young driver in the Dodge Challenger. He's off the road.
Let's head back to our leaders now, doing battle around turn 11 into turn 12 before the start-finish straight. It is still Murray Kent who leads over John McLaughlin and Michael Coulter in 3rd.
4-speed manual gearboxes for these TA2 muscle cars, different body shells for them. Of course, we have the Camaro, the Mustang and the Challenger, but identical mechanical specifications. They all run control V8 motors driven through those 4-speed manual gearboxes. Very physical cars to hustle around a tight and technical circuit like Winton Raceway.
Absolutely, Lockie. Let's take a look at the replay of the start thanks to Promaxx as we ride on board with John McLaughlin. Oh, he actually missed a gear there, which allowed Murray Kent to get the jump on him into turn 1.
You could hear the sound of the engine revs just temporarily rising for a fraction of a second, couldn't you, with that missed shift? And that's been enough to cost him the lead. Let's have a look at what happened to Mark Crutcher on the opening lap. This is running down into turn 4. He's had contact with, that was Warren Truan there on the outside, so those 2 cars have made side-to-side contact. And that's obviously done some damage to Mark Crutcher's car, which has unfortunately seen him pull off to the infield.
As we ride back on board now with Michael Coolidge in 4th spot, looking for a way past Michael Coulter there in front of him. But Murray Kent still leads over John McLaughlin on the charge down to turn 10, Bowden's own corner this weekend, Lockie.
So it's a battle in 2x2 at the moment as Coolidge goes for a move down the inside of Coulter at turn 10. Coulter left the door open. Coolidge sensed the opportunity and was able to dive down the inside. Coulter with the better drive out of the corner will look to fight back on the inside down into turn 11. Gets his nose up the inside, a little bit of a bump between the 2 cars. Coulter not quite able to recapture the position.
Glad Coulter backed out there when he did. That could have gone awry, but we have a safety car out.
So this will bunch up the field, and we're hearing that there's actually a grass fire in the infield of the circuit here at Winton Motor Raceway, so the ever hard-working officials on their way up there to get the extinguishers onto that. Could be that somebody's hot exhaust has ignited the quite dry grass there on the exit of turn 5 of the sweeper.
Let's look at the replay of Michael Coolidge diving down the inside of turn 10 there over Michael Coulter. Coulter didn't really put up much of a defence there, did he?
The door was open. Coolidge sets the opportunity, and with these cars being so evenly matched, if there's even a sniff of an overtaking opportunity that presents itself, you have to go for it, and that's what Michael Coolidge was able to do.
As we go back live now, we are under green flag. We are racing again, and it is still Murray Kent that leads the field into turn 1 and out of turn 2.
There's Russell Wright a little bit further back. He's worked his way up quite a few positions after starting at the rear of the field. And Murray Kent having to take a slightly defensive inside line into turn 3. Michael Coolidge's closing in onto this as well, so it's now becoming a 3-car battle for the race lead.
Michael Coolidge's hoping that John McLaughlin and Murray Kent start to carve each other up, and that's going to open the door for him. We're loving these on-board shots with Promaxx this weekend. Just look at how close they are. These cars look and sound fantastic, and this is what we want to see, a 4-way battle for the lead.
And drivers with varying degrees of experience in TA2 and in different motorsport categories occupying the top 4 positions at the moment. Murray Kent very experienced in Queensland motorsport. The driver in second position, John McLaughlin, we've seen him racing nationally in the Toyota 86 Racing Series. Michael Coolidge, another Queenslander, and Michael Coulter, a driver who's previously raced in stock cars.
We head down the field to have a look at Brett Nile there in the number 54 as someone's turning this into a rallycross stage. That's Tim Tritton, and on board with Anthony Tenkate. So this could be the end of both of their races.
So damage to both of those cars. They were battling for position just inside the top 10, but it looks like they've had it coming together on the exit of turn 10.
Back with your leader now, Murray Kent, still ahead of John McLaughlin, who can't find a way past. Michael Coolidge in third. Here's the replay, Lockie.
So on board with Anthony Tenkate, this is the run down into turn 10. Now Tim Tritton's the car ahead. He's run a little bit wide, and it's as he's coming back onto the circuit, having dropped his wheels over that exit curve, that he's collected Anthony Tenkate, who unfortunately was very much the innocent victim in that one.
Wrong place, wrong time for Anthony Tenkate. Back to your race leader now. Murray Kent doing a fantastic job defending over John McLaughlin as we ride back on board with Michael Coolidge.
This is the final lap, so only a couple of overtaking opportunities left in the final 2 corners.
Murray Kent leads out of turn 12. John McLaughlin getting it a little crossed up, but I don't think it's going to matter. It is Murray Kent ahead of John McLaughlin, just over Michael Coolidge for race 3.
Really stout performance from Murray Kent. He had to absorb a lot of pressure from John McLaughlin all race long. Michael Coolidge, Michael Coulter, and the impressive rookie Graham Chaney completing your top 5.
But a great drive there from our race winner Murray Kent, who's with Kylie King in pit lane.
It is, yeah. I'm a bit stunned, to be honest. Yeah, I got a fantastic jump and probably held John up a little bit, but it was a good race. Stoked. Absolutely stoked.
And what's it like having a driver of the calibre of John right on your hammer through that race?
Oh, yeah, look, I'm not saying I'm better than him, that's for sure, but I just got a good jump, and, yeah, he was right on me the whole way, so it was a fair push. It was great.
We're getting set for the Promaxx Performance Exhausts TA2 Muscle Car Series race number 4. And speaking of number 4, we're riding on board right now with Mark Crutcher in the number 4. Lockie, race 3 did not disappoint.
It certainly didn't. It was an epic battle at the front of the field. Murray Kent had to hold on from John McLaughlin. They will resume their battle in this race. Michael Coolidge and Michael Coulter. Also a couple of other impressive rookies, Graham Chaney and Brett Nile, rounding out your top 6. Good to see in car number 4, Mark Crutcher back out there after his incident on the opening lap of the previous race.
But number 55, Russell Wright, he'll be one to watch as the cars head down the start-finish straight now as we get set to go racing for race 4 here at Winton Motor Raceway. And it is Murray Kent with the inside line over John McLaughlin.
The TA2 muscle cars thunder their way down into turns 1 and 2.
Whoa!
Dramas at the back. Christopher Formosa in the Dodge Challenger having a big moment. A few other cars having to go off the road to avoid contact.
That looked like Peter Hurd and Warren True in there.
So Formosa, he's already had some dramas this weekend. A crash in race 1. His team had to repair his car overnight. Good to see him back. Hopefully not too much more damage, because that's the last thing that he and his crew would need at the moment. But riding on board with Russell Wright, who came from the rear of the field up to 7th in the previous race. They're looking to pick off a few more positions in this one as he looks up the inside of Graham Chaney into turn 7.
But Murray Kent still has the upper hand over John McLaughlin. Michael Coolidge in 3rd, and it looked like Coulter behind him in 4th.
John McLaughlin, he needs to keep the pressure on Murray Kent here because these two drivers, not only are they battling for the race win, but they're battling for the overall round win as well. And the one who might be well placed here if these two start squabbling too much with one another is Michael Cooley, who sits in third position.
How good are these Promaxx onboard shots, Lockie? This is really taking you up close to the action.
You can see just how hard the drivers have to work behind the wheels of these TA2 cars as well. They all run control Hoosier slick tyres, but with the high horsepower that these cars produce, plenty of wheel work required to keep them on the straight and narrow. McLaughlin looking down the inside, but covering off a bit of dust and debris on the inside there, and I think that might have caught out our race leader Murray Kent. It has, and it's McLaughlin who takes advantage and slips up the inside on the run into turn 3.
He was definitely compromised there on the exit of turn 2, was Murray Kent. And it looks like Michael Cooley has also capitalised on that as we ride on board with him right now, but he's dived up the inside and is now sitting in second.
And this is why there was dust and debris all over the racetrack at turns 1 and 2. A massive moment on the entry to the first corner for Christopher Formosa. I'll tell you what, Luke, that could have ended a lot worse than it did. Some great avoiding action from some of the other drivers to miss Formosa's sliding car. This is what it looks like on board the number 49.
Just coming in too hot and couldn't pull it up and took out one of the AASA signs there on the inside of turn 1 as well.
Graham Chaney and Graham Smith, these two drivers battling over position at the moment. Apart from John McLaughlin, they are two of the highest placed rookie drivers in the field. Graham Chaney's come out of off-road motorcycle racing. Graham Smith, a former competitor in Victorian Porsche 944s, along with the Toyota AX6 racing series, and they've both done a great job adapting to the cut and thrust of TA2 racing.
As we ride back on board now with Russell Wright trying to carve his way up through the field. He started in 7th and he's now sitting in, looks to be about 4th spot now.
We go back to qualifying in race 1, we saw just how fast Russell Wright was, so it goes to show just how closely matched these cars are, how tough it is to overtake if you find yourself back in the pack. But he will make a position up the inside of Michael Coulter. He goes at turn 7.
I don't know if you saw that, Lockie, but there was a big puff of smoke that came out the back of Coulter's car then when we were riding on board with Wright. As we now look to Darren Berry, who is in the pits. That is a definite unscheduled pit stop.
Indeed, so not ideal for him. And here's Chaney up the inside of Coulter as well. So that telltale puff of smoke that you picked up there, Luke, I think there might be a bit more to that story, and I reckon that Coulter's nursing some sort of mechanical problem at the moment.
Both the rookies there got past him very easily around Bowden's own corner number 10. As we watch the replay again, oh, look at Chaney having to really pull that up hard under the brakes, but Coulter didn't really offer much in the way of defence there. I think he was kind of happy to let the two get past him there.
At this stage, I reckon that Coulter's just trying to nurse that car home, as Russell Wright finds himself with a bit of clear track to start punching out the sorts of lap times that the car's capable of if he doesn't make mistakes like that. And he rotates the car altogether. That's on the approach to turn 7.
Oh, that's such a shame too, Lockie. He was doing so well up until that point, and then I think just came in a little bit too hot on the exit of turn 5 into turn 6. Yeah, just couldn't get it turned in. Turn 6 there has caught him out. Let's see where he rejoins the track though, because he was having a great drive. It's a rare mistake.
A rare mistake from our former series champion. He will lose at least a couple of positions out of that one. He'll tuck back in behind these two, Chaney and Smith, who continue their battle.
Chaney locking it up there, trying to defend against Graham Smith. The battle of the Grahams, the battle of the rookies, as Smith pulls out to the right, thinks better of it, tucks back in.
He's keeping the pressure on Chaney, and Chaney's going to crumble under that pressure and make a mistake. Locks the rear brakes at turn 1.
Was that the commentator's curse there, Lockie, as he applied the pressure?
And we were talking about what a great job Graham Chaney had done all weekend as well, getting closer and closer to the front of the field with every race. A couple of top 5 finishes in races 2 and 3, but you can see there you don't have to be very far beyond the braking limit there to find that you lock the rears, and then you go pirouetting off the circuit very rapidly.
And this is what it looked like riding on board with Chaney. There was nothing he could do there, unfortunately, and Graham Smith says, "Thank you very much, I'll have that spot." We'll turn our attention now straight back to the battle for second and third. John McLaughlin's checked out as Michael Coolidge passes Chris Formosa, who's probably having a weekend to forget at this stage.
So Michael Coolidge in a very solid second position at this stage. He's just eased out a bit of breathing space ahead of Murray Kent. Up at the front of the field, though, John McLaughlin has checked out. Now that he's got clear track, he's been able to exploit the performance of his car, and we've got more dramas for Graham Cheney. Once again, this is down at turn 1. This time it involves another rookie driver in the field, Brett Nile, the West Australian.
We might come back to that a little bit later on. Let's go back to Murray Kent now, chasing down Michael Coolidge on the hunt for that second spot. And here's the replay. Coming into turn 1, Cheney in way too hot, and Brett Nile did nothing wrong there.
And as Brett Nile spun back across the circuit, the rear of his car has clipped the left rear of Cheney's car. And unfortunately, that would be Cheney's day done after such a promising debut weekend. But speaking of promising debut weekends, how about this performance from John McLaughlin? Something about the surname McLaughlin, Mustangs and the number 17, Luke.
It really is driving 101. He is putting on a masterclass for us here today as he rounds turn 12 onto the start-finish straight for the final time. It will be John McLaughlin that takes the honours for race 4.
Comprehensive victory in the end for John McLaughlin, and not only does he win race 4, but he will also pick up the overall round victory. Second position goes the way of Michael Coolidge. Murray Kent in third spot. Graham Smith next ahead of Russell Wright. Mark Crutch, a great drive through the field, rear of the grid up to 6th spot. And then Warren Truan, Brett Nile, Peter Hurd and Chris LaRosa rounding out the top 10. Kylie is with our race and round winner.
Yeah, I mean, all weekend we've had the pace to be at the front, and I just haven't been able to utilise it too much. So to get that pass done early on in this race allowed me to put a gap on the rest of the field, show what pace we actually have in the car, and yeah, had a good race.
Oh yeah, that was tough. That was real tough, but it was probably that's the best result I've had. I thought third was it, and bettered it by 1, which is really good. Really, really happy with that, and I'll take it. And never felt as good in a long time.
Oh, it was, yeah. Forgot the cool soup. That's all right. Yeah, we got there in the end. Yeah, tried a different strategy with tyres and a bit weaker at the start, but congrats to John and Michael. They did a fantastic job.
What a weekend of racing it has been, and a fantastic way to kick off the Promaxx Performance Exhaust TA2 Muscle Car Series. So for the weekend, your overall professional outright winner was John McLaughlin, ahead of Murray Kent in second and Michael Coolidge in third.
Looking at the Masters class results, very well done to Graham Smith. He takes the Masters class overall round win on debut ahead of Peter Hurd, and the consistent Paul Hadley in third position. Smiles all around on the TA2 Muscle Cars podium. John McLaughlin, not only the round winner, but also the winner of the Rookie of the Round award at Winton Motor Raceway. And he'll head to the next round at Morgan Park as the points leader.
Don't go anywhere. Coming up after the break, we have the Phoenix Lubricants Thunder Sports Cup. Welcome back to Winton Motor Raceway and round 1 of the Australian Motor Racing Series. It's a hot day here in Winton as we prepare for the Phoenix Lubricants Thunder Sports Cup. And we've been treated to some fantastic racing so far, Lockie.
And it's all about big, loud, fast, exciting race cars that produce plenty of action, plenty of entertainment. Kylie King is with a driver who's had a bit of a tough run this weekend. She's catching up with Brent Edwards.
This is a story of resilience and resurrection and having our fingers crossed. Brent Edwards, was a tough start to your weekend. Talk us through what happened. It started really with your first outing in practice.
Yeah, it's been a pretty trying weekend. We went out for first practice and made a bit of a mistake in turn 2. Car came off the curbs a little bit awkwardly and into the tyre wall fairly deep, and we thought we were out for the weekend. So we're ready to pack up and sent a few pictures back to Melbourne, and my brother Trav, who helps us prepare the car, he's not here this weekend. He said, bring it back here. I reckon we can fix it. We've got the parts, so let's do it. So by the time we packed up, got out of here, and we got back to Tyab at 6 o'clock at night, and we had it all fixed by 12 o'clock. Packed up, had a few hours sleep, and brought it back up here in time for qualifying yesterday. So it was an absolutely amazing effort.
An amazing effort indeed, just to even be here as the cars take to the track ahead of race 4 this weekend. And race 3 certainly provided a lot of action, didn't it, Lockie?
Certainly did. One of the great things about the Thunder Sports Cup is that we've got a big variety of different types of race cars. Race number 4 is going to feature a reverse grid format, which should produce plenty of overtaking and plenty of passing as some of the faster cars come through the field. But let's have a look at what happened in race 3. Stephen Shilby, who'd won the previous 2 races, started on pole position. The reigning champion Mark Tracy in that bright red BMW E36 slotted into 3rd position. It's a bit further back in the pack where we saw some good battle groups of cars.
But it was all about that man. 2-2-6. Stephen Chilby in that Oz truck. Mark Tracy had no answers. We look at Merrick Maloof and Brett Mitchell doing battle as well. Brett Mitchell up the inside there at turn 1. He'd finish in 4th and Maloof would finish in 7th, of course, in that Prime Finance. They're our sponsor of the Hard Charger Award this weekend, Lockie.
Indeed they are. Some good class battles a bit further down the order as well. John Rostevsky, one of our Class B runners, involved in a battle with Hayden Burrell in the Lotus Exchange. Mid-engine cars are now eligible for the Thunder Sports Cup as well. Burrell running wide at turn number 10 and surrendering that spot. And we turn our attention back towards the front of the field. Merrick Maloof in the Falcon Ute in a battle with Nathan Rourke in the Falcon Sedan.
There were battles everywhere you look as Joshua Dowell in the Ford held off Daniel Vanderhayden in the Commodore as John Rostevsky took a off-track excursion there coming around turn 12.
Nathan Rourke down the inside of Merrick Maloof into turn 3, but out-braked himself, ran wide off into the dust. Merrick Maloof shot through on the inside and recaptured the position, but it was Stephen Chilby who picked up his 3rd race victory of the weekend by a comprehensive margin as well.
He really hasn't set a foot wrong, so reverse grid for the start of race 4. Hayden Morrell, Brent Edwards, Merrick Maloof, Daniel Flanagan and Sam Collins will lead Class A this race.
So the grid is reversed within each class, so the Class A cars still starting ahead of the Class B cars, but the positions within each class are reversed. That means Stephen Chilby will be coming from a bit further back in the pack for this 4th and final race of the weekend ahead of Nathan Rourke, who was a non-finisher in race number 3. Once again, we've got some great onboard cameras thanks to Phoenix Lubricants bringing us all of the action.
And here we go. It is Hayden Morrell with the inside line into turn 1. Merrick Maloof comes in too hot. It's given him a nudge and Hayden's being spun.
And cars will have to take evasive action to avoid a head-on collision with that Lotus. I think Stephen Chilby might have just lightly grazed the rear end of Hayden Morrell's Exige as he went through on the outside, but it was Daniel Flanagan who was pinching Morrell up against the curb, and like you said there, Merrick Maloof making contact with the rear of Hayden Morrell's car and sending it into a spin at turn 1.
On board now with Damien Hunter in the Renault Clio as he tries to find a way past Owen Boak in the Mazda MX-5. The big left-hander, the sweeper, turn 5. Not the place to overtake, but maybe he'll have a look into turn 6 and 7.
Damien Hunter, he's been a giant killer this weekend with the little front-wheel drive 4-cylinder Renault Clio. It's been taking the fight up to far more powerful cars all weekend. He's won all 3 of the races in Class B, and once again putting in a very, very solid performance in this final race. Safety car is out, and that's because we do have a Lotus parked on the exit of turn 2. And thanks to Ambler Direct, here's a replay of how it all went wrong for Hayden Morrell at turn 1.
He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time there. Merrick Maloof coming in way too fast, and he's given a big nudge to Hayden Morrell and caused a lot of cars to have to take evasive action there around turn 2.
All of the drivers did a really good job of avoiding a head-on collision with the Lotus. Brent Edwards, you can see all of a sudden, he found his path blocked, went to the right, but the problem for him was that he had Brett Mitchell on his right-hand side as well, so it's really, really good awareness and anticipation from those drivers to avoid what could have been a multi-car pile-up.
And you can see how hard it is for them to see through that thick dust. There's amazing cat-like reflexes there from a lot of the field.
So lights are out on the safety car, set for a restart, and it's going to be the Canberra production car racer and driving instructor Daniel Flanagan in his HSV who will lead the field. Mark Tracy makes up a couple of spots for the restart, gets down the inside of Merrick Maloof and also Brett Mitchell. Watch out though for Stephen Chilby coming through in that Oz truck. He has been the form driver all weekend, and they're looking to charge his way back up into first position.
What a restart by Tracy as he now dives down the inside of turn 3 to lead, but he sent it a little bit wide, and Flanagan says, thank you, I'll take that back around turn 4 using every bit of those new curbs here at Winton.
Daniel Flanagan's car, because it's pretty much a standard production car, a bit heavier than some of the other machines that have been on big weight reduction programs, so he'll do pretty well here, Daniel Flanagan, to try and hold out some of these faster vehicles. But we're hearing from the officials, Luke, that Mark Tracy's start has been deemed, the restart, to have been a little bit too good. He's going to be on the receiving end of a 10-second post-race time penalty.
He came out of nowhere, didn't he? And I think the red mist has truly descended on Mark Tracy in that red BMW, because he's, of course, been staring at the back of Stephen Chilby's Oz truck for most of the weekend, so he really wants a race win.
He gets the move done on Daniel Flanagan on the run into turn 10. Flanagan about to come under pressure from the Brett Mitchell-driven Oz truck, which just blasts its way out of that 10th corner and will get down on the inside of Flanagan as they head into turn 11. Flanagan's car will have the strength under brakes, and he looks to do the switchback, but the problem for him is the Commodore just doesn't quite have the straight line performance of the Oz trucks. And good to see Corey Gillett up there in the lead pack as well. Then an up and down weekend for one of the main title contenders from the 2019 season.
As we watch Gillett now on the inside of turn 1, Flanagan trying to get the switchback on the inside of turn 2. He's done it. But he's getting swarmed by the Nissan Silvias of both Gillett and Sam Collins now, as Collins moves up the inside of Gillett into turn 3. Oh, and now Flanagan out way too wide there on the exit of turn 3.
Good awareness there from Samuel Collins, because he saw that Flanagan was a bit wide. He saw that Corey Gillett was checked up. The Queensland driver in that yellow Nissan Silvia was able to get up the inside and gained a position. As we see Damien Hunt, we talked about the giant killing performances from the Renault. He's putting the pressure on the 6-cylinder Falcon of Brent Edwards. Look at the amount of mid-corner speed that this little Renault Clio is able to carry, and look at just how hard Damien Hunter drives it.
Damien Hunter there positioning the car in the middle of the track, making sure to give no room to Damien Hunter, because as soon as he opens the door, Damien's going through as we ride back on board. Listen to the sound, that sweet sound of the Renault Clio.
It's a high revving engine, isn't it? And it'll have to be revved quite hard, because it will produce its power a lot higher in the rev range compared to the Ford, which will have much more low-end torque and therefore better power delivery coming off some of the slower corners. But the battle between these Nissan Silvia combatants continues. Sam Collins holding out Corey Gillett, who's based just up the road from Winton Motor Raceway on the border at Albury-Wodonga. So he's done a lot of laps around the nation's action track.
Back on board with Damien Hunter now into turn 3, still staring at the back of Brent Edwards' Falcon. Has a think about it, takes the sharper line, doesn't quite have the speed on the exit of either turn 3 or 4 there. And he's going to have to be content to stare at the bumper for a little bit longer.
This is a classic battle between cars that have got strengths and weaknesses in different parts of the racetrack. Brent Edwards, he'll pull away in the straighter sections of track where the top speeds are higher. But through these tight and twisty bits, the quick direction changes through turns 7, 8 and 9, that's Renault territory. That's where Damien Hunter's car comes to the fore. And a look at that, Stephen Chilby, he had to start further down the grid because of the reverse format, but he's already worked his way back to the front.
What a weekend Stephen Chilby is having. That Oz truck just looks like it's on rails. Not only does it have some amazing straight line speed, but he also hasn't set a foot wrong.
Stepped up to the Oz truck after competing in the Legend Car Series previously, and can you believe, Luke, that since he purchased and started racing that Oz truck, he has not lost a race.
Oh, as we watch Collins and Gillett get very close there on the entrance to turn 1, it's now the battle of the Nissan Silvias. Gillett looks to go down the inside of turn 3. Does he have enough? Yes, he does.
So Corey Gillett moves up a spot as we check out the Prime Finance replay of that manoeuvre. Prime Finance on board as well to sponsor the Hard Charger Award for the weekend, and that was a fairly textbook manoeuvre there from Corey Gillett heading through turns 3 and 4.
As we watch this battle between Damien Hunter and Edwards in front of him still. If you're watching at home and wondering how to tell Class A and Class B apart during this race, just look for the banner on the windshield or the windscreen. If it's white, they're in Class A. If it's black, they're in Class B.
So this is the move for the lead that happened just before. In the end, fairly straightforward there for Stephen Chilby.
Is that around the outside of turn 10 there, Lockie?
It certainly is, so just shows the confidence that Stephen Chilby is driving with this weekend. Goes all the way around the outside of the reigning series champion through the left-hander.
And if Tracy's not careful, he'll just watch Chilby disappear off into the sunset as he has the last few races.
Good news for Mark Tracy, though. We talked about that 10-second time penalty for him earlier on. He has managed to extend more than a 10-second gap over the next car behind. So at this stage, that penalty's not going to cost him any positions.
And this is Josh Dow now, who's trying to hold off a charging Owen Boak. And Daniel Vanderheyden behind him as well in a battle for 10th. And I think that's also a battle for 3rd in Class B.
Indeed, it is really good to see these different types of cars. Josh Dow in his Falcon, Owen Boak, a long-time campaigner in Mazda MX-5s, and Daniel Vanderheyden, a driver who's done a lot of laps in club-level motorsport events at Winton Raceway. As we ride on board with Brent Edwards' massive uphill battle, as we heard from Kylie King, just to be on the racetrack this weekend after a crash in Friday practice.
Definitely a contender for the Hard Charger Award this weekend.
All of the work that he's had to do just to keep that car running, it has been very, very tireless efforts from the entire team off the racetrack to keep that Falcon running, but still he hasn't been able to dispose of this pesky little Renault. Damien Hunter still looming in the mirrors of Brent Edwards, keeping the pressure on the Falcon driver.
Damien is driving the wheels off this Renault.
Look at the ground that he makes through turns 1 and 2, just as a result of the nimble handling of the Renault, and Brent Edwards has to defend to the inside on the run into turn 3.
Tell you what though, Edwards' sponsors, Cable Source, they're absolutely loving the coverage he's getting this weekend as we go back to Brett Mitchell in that number 8 Chevrolet Malu Ute. But we'll turn our attention back to the leader. It is Stephen Chilby on the last lap, rounding turn 12 for the final time. Another fantastic race from Stephen Chilby. He takes the checkered flag and a clean sweep for the weekend.
And keeps intact his 100% winning record in the Oz Truck as well. So, comprehensive round victory, maximum points for him ahead of the reigning series champion Mark Tracy, who comes home second. Corey Gillett finishes off an up and down weekend with a top 3 finish ahead of Brett Mitchell, the Queenslander Sam Collins, Maloof Edwards and Damien Hunter, who wins Class B once again, finishing in 8th position outright ahead of Josh Dow and Owen Boak, as we head down to Kylie King with our race winners in pit lane.
It's good jumping on board with Thundersports. It's the first event I've done with them, so the whole crew, they're awesome, welcoming, and enjoyed the whole lot. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we're having a crack, aren't we? And to come away with 4 wins for the weekend. Started not quite at the back in the last race. There was a few DNFs in the 3rd race, so a couple of cars behind us, but we got through. There was a bit of an incident on turn 1 though. We're lucky to escape that. That was a great race.
It was a great race indeed, and so let's have a look now at how all the points have wrapped up for the Phoenix Lubricants Thundersports Cup after round 1. In Class A, it was Stephen Chilby with a clean sweep, finishing first with 100 full points ahead of Mark Tracy, Sam Collins, Corey Gillett and Brett Mitchell.
Damien Hunter taking a clean sweep in Class B to pick up a maximum score of 100 points ahead of Daniel Vanderheyden, Josh Dow, Owen Boak and John Rostevsky. And that wraps up the action from round 1 of the Thundersports Cup. Big thank you to all of the fantastic sponsors, including Amble Direct, Prime Finance, Rook Finance and Albury, Wodonga and Districts Car Club.
And there's plenty of racing coming up after the break with MotorsportsTV Miniature Race Cars, race number 5. Welcome back to a very hot day here at Winton Motor Raceway, the nation's action track. We've been treated to some fantastic racing from both the Promaxx Performance Exhaust TA2 muscle cars and the Phoenix Lubricants Thundersports Cup, but now it's time to turn our attention to the miniature race cars, brought to you of course by Motorsports TV.
Kylie King is down catching up with Gary Roberts and his very cool mini muscle car.
There's something quite special on the grid at the Miniature Race Cars this weekend. It's a mini muscle car. It's a HQ Holden making its debut. The driver behind the wheel, Gary Roberts, not just behind the wheel, but basically he's put this little beast together. How exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting for miniature race cars. It's a new step forward, something we did with Chad. We spoke to him about it about 18 months ago and said, we've got a new concept and we want to do it, and he was all for it. So yeah, that's what we came up with, the XB Falcon first, and last Thursday we finished this HQ Monaro, and yeah, we're wrapped over here today.
Now tell us about the specifics mechanically. There's some prototype stuff in there as well.
Yeah, we've had a lot of prototype stuff, a lot of help from people. Tried to keep all Australian companies involved. So Simon Fitzner over in Adelaide has made us a custom transaxle. We've got a Rover V8 in there. We're running against motorcycle-powered cars, so we've kept the power to a minimum. It's a little bit heavier, but we just want to be competitive, middle pack, and just it's more about the show and bringing something for people to watch, bring back the Holden Ford rivalry that everyone's missing.
And you certainly have given them something to watch, Gary, as we ride on board now with Matthew Thewlis as the cars take to the track ahead of race 5. But we were treated to some fantastic racing earlier on with races 3 and 4. Lockie, how about you talk us through what happened there?
A new format for the miniature race cars this year, Luke. So every race is a full reverse grid of the previous race. So that means that the fast cars always have to fight their way through the pack, and that has produced plenty of overtaking and plenty of exciting racing, which has been fantastic to see. Gary Roberts in race number 3 getting the early jump in that beautifully presented mini muscle car, the HQ Monaro, but a couple of the future race drivers, BJ Lemon battling it out with Craig White, and a spin for Peter Griffiths in his Nissan Ultimate Body Aussie racing car coming out of turn 12, the final corner.
It was Matthew Thewlis there, Lockie, that gave Peter a nudge, and Thewlis has ended up in the gravel trap as we watch now Craig White overtaking Gary Roberts round turn 3 to take the lead. But of course, Thewlis' car in the gravel trap ended with a safety car coming out.
So that bunched up the field, and at the race start it was Craig White, the two-time and reigning series champion, who held the lead, but he was under a bit of pressure from young Blake Purdy, the South Australian. Meanwhile, Gary Roberts in the HQ Monaro was holding out a big freight train of Aussie racing cars, including the recovering Peter Griffiths, but it was Craig White who took the win, Blake Purdy who finished up in position 2.
That race became a little bit of a race of attrition too. We started with 10 cars and only finished with 6. Race 4 did not disappoint either, as Gary Roberts in that beautiful HQ Mini muscle car led the pack again in the reverse grid through turns 1 and 2. But BJ Lemon didn't need much of an invitation before sending it down the inside of turns 6 and 7 to take the race lead.
Because they are such small cars, these miniature race cars, they can overtake in spots that full-size race cars cannot. And Matthew Thewlis, after his dramas in the previous race, was pretty keen to make amends, and he got involved in a door-to-door battle with Blake Purdy.
As we watch now as Peter Griffiths and Craig White shoot up the inside of Gary Roberts around turn 11. Unfortunately for Gary, that car does not have any power steering, and with this heat, he just starts to struggle with his energy levels as the race unwinds and he finds himself falling backward through the field.
Mechanically, it is quite a different car to the motorcycle-engined Aussie racing cars and future races as well. Blake Purdy there making the move on Matt Thewlis. BJ Lemon getting the job done on Thewlis as well. That's around through turns 3 and 4. But it was another race victory that went the way of Craig White. He's setting up for a pretty good weekend.
You mentioned Blake Purdy just before, Lockie. I've been super impressed with that 15-year-old, and I'm going to be keen to see what he can do in this final race of the weekend.
As well as the on-track activity, he also does a lot of online sim racing as well to keep himself sharp in between racing events, Blake Purdy. But we are gearing up now for the 5th and final race of the weekend, and once again, Luke, it will feature a reverse grid format.
And it's lights out and we go racing for the final race of the weekend here. Motorsport TV's miniature muscle cars. It is Gary Roberts with the inside line. BJ Lemon coming around the outside and makes it stick. But it looks like Gary Roberts just managed to cut back. He has.
Side by side they will go, heading into turn number 3, and it is Gary Roberts in the number 7 HQ Monaro who will hold the lead on this opening lap. We ride on board with Peter Griffiths in the Nissan Altima. He's tucked up in behind Matt Thewlis as they head into the sweeper. You can get a sense from these Motorsports TV onboard cameras, Luke, just the sorts of vibrations and physical energy that you get when you're in the driver's seat of one of these cars. You are very close to the ground. You sit with one leg either side of the steering column, and it's very, very physical inside the cockpit.
Just like driving a big go-kart, is not Lockie, as we ride on board again with Matthew Thewlis staring at the bumper of Klein in that Shell Helix livery. and Craig White as well, who's managed to get himself up there into third spot now.
Craig White has become the master of these charges through the field in each race, which with the reverse grid format, that's what he's had to do. Keep working his way through to the front of the field. Blake Purdy starting to make up some spots a bit further back in the pack as well. But Gary Roberts, we know that he is struggling a bit with no power steering in that HQ Monaro, but he's done a good job to keep the future races of the Aussie racing cars at bay on this opening lap.
As BJ Lemon now looks to have a run at Roberts into turn 1. He's got the inside line. As we ride back on board now with Peter Griffiths into turn 1. Like you said, Lockie, it is fantastic to see these onboard shots and see just how hard they have to work to keep those cars in a straight line. But he's now heading up the inside of Thewlis. Oh, little evasive manoeuvre there. Some serious bumping and rubbing going on there with Blake Purdy on the outside.
Matt Thewlis went up the inside with a big move through on Craig White at turn 3, and as he ducked out to make that passing manoeuvre, Peter Griffiths found his nose cut off, so he got checked up on the run into that corner, which allowed Purdy to make the move around the outside. But we can see here that Gary Roberts is just starting to check up some of these other cars. Matt Thewlis tucked in behind Peter Klein in the Shell Helix liveried AU Falcon Aussie racing car, as we see a replay of that slightly awkward moment up at turn 3.
Thought he was going to get down the inside of Thewlis there, but then as Thewlis cut across the front, Blake Purdy's given him a big nudge from the left.
Matt Thewlis battling it out with Craig White. Craig White, as mentioned, has won the last 2 miniature race car series. Matt Thewlis, a driver with experience in lots of other different types of cars, including the Nissan Pulsar racing series and production cars as well. Thoroughly enjoying his time in the miniature race car series competition.
I'm going to give a big shout out to Matthew Thewlis too, because he's actually driving a new car, so he's still getting used to all the intricacies behind the wheel, so he's doing a great job. And Craig White's actually had his throttle restricted for this race due to his dominance earlier on, as these guys run a restriction program just to try and keep the battles and the racing tight. As we watch the progression here up the hill and the run down into turn 3, this big right-hander.
What they try and aim for in the miniature race cars, Luke, is to get the power to weight ratio the same between the cars. So the future races do run the Suzuki Hayabusa motor, whereas the Aussie racing cars run the slightly lower capacity Yamaha motor, and they try and equalise the performance between those engines the best that they can.
We turn our attention now to Craig White, looking for a way past Klein. The inside of turn 6, he's given him a huge shunt. Oh, was the door open there, Lockie? I don't know.
Matt Thewlis there taking some evasive action and making up at least one position as a result of that, but I'll tell you what, I don't think the door was fully open there. I think that Craig White was putting his nose into a gap where Peter Klein wouldn't have been expecting him.
And unfortunately, Klein's ended up worse for wear there. He'll have to rejoin toward the back of the pack. As we jump back on board with Peter Griffiths in a battle with Thewlis, you can see just out the left window there, he's got the inside line, but Thewlis is carrying some greater speed around the outside of that corner. As they charge down the start-finish straight once again, that run into turns 1 and 2.
Peter Griffiths looking for a slipstream advantage for Matt Thewlis, and he'll dive to the inside with the extra speed at turn 1 and recapture that position. These two have been battling all race long. They've swapped positions on a number of occasions, but because the contest between them has been so intense, it's allowed a couple of their rivals to skip away up the road.
Absolutely, but we'll stick with this for now. Jumping back on board once again with Thewlis. Looking for a way past. He's not going to get it done around turn 5, but maybe he'll position himself for a run down the inside into turn 6 and 7.
And the battle is on at the front between the two future racer drivers, and they will swap the lead as well as Craig White goes down the inside of BJ Lemon to relieve him of first position. Blake Purdy doing a really good job in the Aussie racing car as well. Here at a low-speed circuit like Winton, the Aussie racing cars don't quite have the punch off the slower corners compared to the future races with their slightly bigger Hayabusa motor, but Blake Purdy is driving exceptionally well and taking the fight right up to the future races.
There was a replay, thanks to Motorsports TV, of the move from Peter Griffiths down the inside there of Thewlis in the run into turn 1. As we turn our attention now back to this battle for second between Blake Purdy and BJ Lemon. BJ Lemon currently sitting in second. Purdy in that orange Nippy's livery, looking for a way past Lemon. Round turn 7, he's got the inside line. He's going to have to go around the long way here. But if he holds this, he's going to have the inside line around turn 9.
And he's done it too. Very, very nicely executed there for Blake Purdy. Like you said, he had to hang tough around the outside through turn 8 to make sure that he had the preferred inside line for the next right-hander at turn 9. Great racecraft from the South Australian teenager. He's up into second position. More importantly than that though, Luke, he's in a position to win the round overall if he can stay where he is.
What a mature head on such young shoulders. He's done that so well, held his line, they gave each other room, it was good clean racing, and Blake's come out on top. As you said, he's just 15 years old, going off to race in the ARC category after this, so he's just getting in as much training and as much practice as he can, but now he's got to get his elbows out and withstand the pressure, because BJ Lemon's not going to let him just get away with that.
And Peter Griffiths, who seems to have finally disposed of Matt Thulis, is clawing his way into this battle as well. So,
does he say that, Lockie? He's made a huge mistake.
Commentators' curse strikes once again, and Peter Griffiths, who was catching up and looking like he was going to be challenging for a top 3 result, has spun himself out of contention.
A top 3 result definitely goes beckoning there for Peter Griffiths, but this is the hot battle now for position number 2.
Here's what happened to Peter Griffiths just on the exit of turn 3. We mentioned before earlier in the show about the rate profiling of the racetrack between turns 3 and 4 here at Winton Motor Raceway. And it looks like Peter Griffiths just tried to carry a bit too much mid-corner speed there.
Yeah, it looked like as he got back on the gas, the rear of that car's just flipped around. And there was nothing he could do to hold that.
These cars with their short wheelbases don't give you a lot of warning before they let go, but Craig White, a DNF in one of the earlier races means that he won't win the round, but he's bounced back very strongly with victories in all of the final 3 races of the weekend. He adds another one to his collection. How about Blake Purdy though? Second position for him. It's going to be enough for him to take the overall round victory in round 1 of the MotorsportsTV Miniature Race Cars.
And of course, as always, Kylie King is down in the pits with our race winner.
Yeah, it was a good finish at the end of the day. Bit of an upset in round 2, race 2 with a DNF, but all in all, good. Had a bit of a come together with Pete there, so I apologise for that. But all in all good bloody weekend, and enjoyed it totally. And
yeah, it's definitely been a good weekend. Ever since Friday when we rocked up, the car's just been hooked. So it's good to see that it's still got grip in the final. So yeah, comes out with a 3rd.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and you know these guys are in your mirrors. You just push, and yeah, I just got it wrong, but it was good. Last race was fantastic, so very pleased.
It was a hard-fought weekend for the MotorsportsTV Miniature Race Cars, but this is how it looked championship points-wise after all was said and done. It was, of course, Blake Purdy in position number 1, BJ Lemon, Craig White, Matthew Thulis, and Gary Roberts rounding out the top 5. And that wraps up round 1 of the Australian Motor Racing Series here at Winton. Lockie, what an opening round.
Indeed it was. Some fantastic victories, but also some great stories of drivers staging determined fightbacks from adversity as well.
To stay up to date with all the latest AMRS news and upcoming races, just join us at amrseries.com.au. For now, on behalf of Lachlan Mansell, Kylie King and myself, Luke Heismans, it's goodbye from Winton Motor Raceway.
Coming up after the break, we head to the Isla 2000 ski resort in France for round 3 of the 2019-20 Andros Trophy.